Hokie Hangover, live on YouTube, 9:41 p.m. When we say 9:30, just assume it's 10 minutes later.
Every time.
By the way, we're recording on Wednesday night, not Tuesday night, and we ran a poll. There was one of us who was the reason for postponing. Andrew, you wanted me to cue you up for the results there.
Yeah, survey says the final voting results. Ricky LeBleu coming in third with 22.4% of the vote. In second, myself with 37.6% of the vote. And 40% of you were indeed correct, selecting Mike McDaniel. With that being said, a little too tight in the race between me and Mike for my taste. That being said, I have, it's been 5 years on this podcast, and I have spent 5 years telling you guys how irresponsible I am. So I don't blame you for thinking that, but at the same time, this is the man that back in the day we used to play a game on the radio called, and up next we have a good old game of, will Mike McDaniel answer his phone when we call him for his weekly segment? It's at the same time every week.
Yep.
But the man has a kid. He's married. He's got a couple of jobs full time. We'll give him credit. Here we are. We're live. We appreciate all of our listeners joining us here tonight.
I must say, I'm rather offended that so many people thought it was me.
That's just the Ricky troll vote right there. That is a contingency. I love it.
It's very true.
I felt some type of way about that going to bed last night.
Yeah. Well, Here we are. Survey says.
It's all right. I'm gonna feel way worse Friday night. I'm gonna feel way worse.
Yeah, we'll get into that. I mean, look, the survey was correct. It was me, and apologies. It happens. All right, kid, busy, all that good stuff. All right, happens.
Mike's like, enough. I don't want to talk about it.
No, it's fine. I mean, hey, it's fine. I deserve every bit of what I got here. I deserve the poll. Although the poll was cold-blooded. I texted you guys the poll was extremely cold-blooded. Like moments after it went up, I was like, yo, this is really funny, but this is cold-blooded. And let you guys know, and I knew I would win the poll. But it was close, Andrew. To your point, it was very close.
Too close for comfort.
Shout out Pete McGee. Pete McGee said he voted for Ricky, assuming something chaotic happened.
I guess that's a fair point in the sense of you never really know what could happen. But
right. It's fair.
I feel like it's death, taxes, and me showing up.
I would agree. You are certainly the most reliable out of the three of us, I would say, in regard to this podcast.
There's a gap, too.
There is a gap. It's Ricky, like 1,000 layers of shit, and then Andrew and I interchangeable order, depending on the week, Something like that. Anyway, we're going to talk about Miami here in a few minutes. Virginia Tech traveling on the road to number 7 Miami. I don't think any of us feel very good about the game, so we're going to talk about something else to start out. No, it's not conference realignment, but I feel like every week we get something chaotic that really just kind of speaks to the turmoil or just the general state of college football right now, college athletics as a whole. UNLV starting quarterback Matt Sluka. UNLV is off to their first 3-0 start in 40 years. They are one of the early contenders in the month of September for the Group of Five's playoff spot. Of course, the highest-ranked Group of Five team goes to the college football playoff as an at-large. UNLV is a candidate for that under Barry Odom. Matt Sluka has thrown 6 touchdowns to 1 interception. He's been their starting quarterback all year. He came out with an announcement late on Tuesday night saying that he was going to redshirt because it was, right before his 4th game is being played, so he can retain his redshirt. He was going to opt out the rest of the season, redshirt, and then transfer. And the wording of his tweet was interesting, but basically what happened was he was alleging that, UNLV made some promises to him when he transferred there out of Holy Cross, where he spent most of his career under Bob Chesney, before he went to James Madison. Saluka graduate transferred into UNLV, said he was made a bunch of promises from UNLV's staff in regards to NIL, as it turns out, and that UNLV didn't keep those promises and didn't pay him. Basically, what it's turned into all day today, Wednesday, as we sit here recording, is a big he said, she said PR war between UNLV and Saluka. Basically, Saluka saying they didn't pay him what they said they would. Saluka's dad came out, talked to Pete Thamel of ESPN, which, that's going to get the message out if you talk to Pete Thamel.
Yep.
Said to him that, no, we're not looking for, there's no other school recruiting him. Of course, they're going to say that. There's no intention to gain any more money than what they agreed to. It's just that, hey, look, he was promised a certain dollar figure in NIL when he came here. They haven't paid him at all, and they haven't really shown an intention to pay him, so he's going to opt out. Meanwhile, UNLV, through their collective, which ironically is called UNILV, which is very funny, they said that there was never an agreement with Saluka in place, a written agreement saying that they were going to pay him a certain amount of money, anything like that. And they actually don't owe him any money. So this is going to be a PR disaster. There's going to be lawyers involved. And I think if you're UNLV, you have to wonder whether or not it can't be catastrophically large amounts of money for a Holy Cross quarterback transfer. But you have to wonder if just paying him what you said you would, because I'm assuming you said you'd pay him something, right? Just paying him what you said you would is probably going to be a lot cheaper than going through all this litigation to maybe pay him, maybe not. It just seems like a giant PR disaster for UNLV. I don't think it paints Saluka in the best light, especially if it comes out that there was no written agreement for any sort of payment. I'm not sure it paints him in the best light as a player. This is a gigantic mess. And I don't really care what happens here, to be honest with you. But the one thing I want to highlight is that, this is going to become something larger, I think. And I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner than this. But I think that this is we're going to go down the path, and this is going to be something that we're going to have to continue to monitor, because I think more players are going to do that. In fact, we're already seeing it with USC defensive tackle Bear Alexander. Basically, as we hit record tonight, said he's redshirting and he's transferring for the third time in his career. So here we are. This is the rapture. This is like the Christian McCaffrey opting out of the Sun Bowl thing. This is going to be something that I think we're going to see at the end of September now moving forward. That's my thought. That's my take. What do you guys think?
Well, here's what I'll say. My first thought today was, I believe it was Ross Dellinger's tweet, cited Matthew Saluka's agent, Marcus Cromartie, confirming that, quote, nothing was signed, but it was promised. If nothing was signed, if nothing was put into writing, then you, Mr. Cromartie, are the worst agent in the history of the world.
Maybe he should just get a new. That was another take I had. Maybe he should just get a new agent. And I think Ricky, I think you texted that or tweeted it today at some point. You mentioned that maybe he just needs a new agent.
I don't know if that was me actually. My thoughts are completely unrelated to the agent, but I mean, yes, he probably should get a new one.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Anna.
Yeah, I would say that is gross negligence on the part of Mr. Marcus Cromartie. And when you look at kind of how the story is developing at this point, 9:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this Wednesday, the 25th of September, UNLV is saying yeah, we promised him $3,000. Somewhere.
Not an exorbitant amount of money.
Right? Yeah, not an exorbitant amount of money. It's like a couple of my couch. let's be. I got a nice couch.
It's a mortgage payment.
The couch put me in the hole for a little bit.
Flex on him, Andrew. Damn, flex on him.
Sorry, my name is Andrew Alex, and I have a nice couch. But either way, my couch. Do you know what my couch isn't? $100,000, because that's a lot different than a couple $1,000. So we are on two very far ends of the he said, she said. And this litigation, does it come, is going to be ugly. Because, and to your point, Mike, probably more expensive for the University of Nevada, Los Angeles than $100,000.
Yeah.
So is it a matter of principle? Is it a matter of they think they can win the litigation and do away with a Holy Cross quarterback that's completed 43.8% of his passes so far this season, including, against Kansas, 38. You mentioned the touchdown to interception ratio. Well, most of those touchdowns came against the Utah Tech Trailblazers, about half of them. So maybe he hasn't lived up to expectations. Maybe this isn't the time for Mr. Sluka to come asking for his payday. But the reality of the situation is, to your point, Mike, this is the rapture. This is going to keep happening. Yeah. And frankly, I think 2-3 years down the line, in a situation that we're seeing with Virginia Tech right now, you'd be seeing a lot of players. And I don't want to speak negative things into existence, but if you're DeQuan Felton, who allegedly was getting NFL grades, and here you are sitting at 70 some odd receiving yards, 4 games into the season, not getting the ball. Yeah, I'm out. I'm out. Yeah. If that's the way that we're playing the game at this point. So, once again, it's an example of when the NCAA and the institutions that make it up, especially the ones with power, choose to follow the winds rather than chart a fair and equitable path down the road that we're inevitably going. These are the situations that are going to arise. And here we are.
Yep.
Mike, I'm going to need you to throw up that comment from Gregory Azar. That is grade A quality. In all seriousness, this was entirely predictable by anyone that's been paying attention. We knew that something like this would happen. Like Mike said, it was really a matter of when. And quite honestly, I think we're all surprised it didn't happen sooner.
Yeah.
The power brokers of college football, including the players, I might add, as well as the media, university administrators, presidents, coaches, they all rushed to try and make sure that we started paying players legally. We all knew we were paying players illegally. That's been done for a while now. The McDonald's bag with the cash is no surprise. Everyone's heard that story thousands of times, thousands of different ways. But in an effort to try and rush to pay these players more than scholarship money and cost of attendance, we have created a system that makes no sense, is not in any way stable,
not regulated.
It's and quite honestly, it's taking away from the on-field product, in my opinion.
I agree. Every week it's like, oh, who's realigning next, and who's transferring where?
You've got a team that's 3-0. Now, granted, Sluka's not had a great year through the air at this point, but he's a hell of a runner. But you've got a starting quarterback of a 3-0 football team that has at least an outside chance at making the college football playoff. Yeah. And their quarterback isn't even playing anymore. It's not like this guy couldn't get on the field. The guy started all 3 games. What are we doing here? I'm so frustrated and fed up with the leaders of this sport. And this is not, and I'm so tired of people constantly only picking out the NCAA for this. The NCAA deserves a ton of blame, and that's absolutely correct. But folks have to start looking themselves in the damn mirror. I'm looking at you, university presidents. I'm looking at you, head coaches. I'm looking at you, players. All of you advocated for this, and all of you wanted to rush into this as quickly as possible. And then you thought Congress was going to fix this with a few hearings and that we were going to get some sort of federal NIL regulation that was going to make this better.
I mean, they dragged their feet for so long that Congress had to get involved.
Mitt Romney can't
Yeah,
save you.
and Mike, did Congress make it any better?
No, they made it worse
No.
like they always do.
Okay,
No,
so
of course not.
all of these people that are making, six-figure and up salaries in the sport, this is your fault. This is 157% your fault.
Yeah.
And I'm out of the professional business at this point, right? I'm not a full-time sports writer anymore, so I don't really care if I'm rubbing anyone the wrong way. But this is your fault, and as a fan, I'm kind of over it. One of the fun things about college football is that there was a lot more that the players were paying for than just the paycheck. Like, everyone loves professional sports, and I'm certainly one of them. But as someone that really grew up around college football, knew a ton of guys who were playing, those guys were playing for a lot more than just their scholarship. And we have completely removed that from the sport. And I know that some people are going to think I'm being an old head, and that's an antiquated way of looking at it. But in a lot of ways, this sport is built and centered around tradition, and we are in the process of destroying that to its very core. And I know that we're never going back to an amateurism model. That's never going to happen. So at this point, the leaders of the sport need to step in and actually get off of their rears and make some decisions that are going to set this sport up for a future that's stable and folks will be able to understand. Because right now we're in just an absolute wasteland where no one knows what the rules are, no one knows what's happening. You've got teams recruiting players from other rosters in the middle of the season, which you can't even do in professional sports.
Yeah.
It's completely gotten out of hand. And Mike, I think you're absolutely right. I think this is the first of many. This is going to happen more and more often. And I don't like it. I don't think it's good for the future of the sport. And I would really enjoy some of the leaders of this sport, the so-called leaders of this sport, to do something about it.
Yeah, agreed.
And not just do something that's actually going to make this better, because they've been doing a lot of some things, and all those things have made things worse.
Yeah, I think this is going to, and we're heading down this path, but we're heading towards a world where student athletes are employees of the school,
Yeah.
and they're paid, and they have a contract with the school.
They're not going to go to class.
There's going to be stipulations.
Yeah.
And we can stop with this whole amateurism charade, right? Because we're already out of that, right? And I mentioned on this podcast, like I'm pro paying players, I'm pro freedom of movement in terms of players, wanting to better a situation for themselves, but also I think that the transfer portal and the way it's structured right now, where you can transfer wherever you want at any time, coupled with the fact that we're essentially paying for play right now in college football, right? It's under the guise of NIL, and
Which is not what NIL is supposed to be.
And it was not.
It's not what this is supposed to be.
And tampering, because you have no regulations around any of this, tampering is running rampant. You have teams calling up agents of players in the middle of the year, wondering if they're looking for something different at the end of the year or in the middle of the year. I mean, one rumor that's floated around that I believe, because there's no reason to really not believe it, is that Quinshad Judkins, who's Ohio State's star running back, one of a few of the star running backs they have, obviously, transferred from Ole Miss, and he actually went, a rumor that's flying around is that he went to Ole Miss's football program, right, led by Lane Kiffin in the middle of last season when he was balling out, and said, I want more money. And Lane said, no, we're good. And then he transferred to Ohio State, and I think both schools are fine, right? Like, Ole Miss is top 10 team. They're playing good football. Ohio State hasn't played anybody yet, but they look really good. It works out for both sides, and that's like the highest end. Like, it's a premium player, obviously, in Judkins. He's outstanding. But there's no reason to believe that that's not happening everywhere. We know the tampering is happening everywhere. And until there's some regulations around all this, it's just going to be a mess. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Pretty much. Don't see it getting any better anytime soon, Mike.
No, I don't either.
Life lesson to everyone: always get it in writing. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what we're talking about. Always get it in writing. Your normal job, I don't know what you do. Your boss tells you something, get it in writing. Can't hurt.
Yeah. A mess. That's all I have there. Let's talk about this game.
It's going to suck. The end.
Let's ask this question. How does Virginia Tech cover here?
What are we at? Is it 18 and a half? I think
No,
it's what.
it's now up to 20.
Oh, Jesus. It's 19 when I wrote my column for the week. They're going to have to turn Miami over. I think that's part of it. Tech's defense is pretty. It's solid on the back end. I think they've got some issues that Rutgers really exposed, and they're going to have to tighten up. But they've got defensive backs that are capable of playing lockdown defense and making some plays. If they can do that, and they can maybe force one or two turnovers from Cam Ward, who's been essentially an exceptional player up to this point, then I think Tech can maybe do it. They're also going to need to probably hit on one or two big passing plays, one of which may need to go for a touchdown.
Right.
And that's just a cover. I mean, if we're talking about winning, they're going to have to be really efficient running the football. And they're also going to have to play really good defense on the back end and kind of contain Cam Ward's arm and this cadre of Miami receivers and Damian Martinez as well.
Yeah, I mean, against Marshall, Vanderbilt, and Rutgers, we haven't seen Virginia Tech's offense put together more than a quarter and a half of, effectively moving the ball. To cover in this game, I think you probably need 3 full quarters of it. To win the game, it needs to be lights out from start to finish. The best defensive game you've played all year. Mike, we talk a lot about how Virginia Tech just finds ways to, clutch defeat out of the jaws of victory, if you will. None of that. And you're going to have to hope for some luck on the other side. You're going to have to hope for some good old-fashioned Miami in their first, what we can only pray is a real test, hitting some level of dysfunction. And suddenly it shows that this is a team full of transfers that hasn't played together for very long. Miami is the team that should be making the type of mistakes that Virginia Tech's made all season long to this point. If we can get some of that and a damn near perfect game from Virginia Tech, there's hope. There's upsets in college football all the time. App State beat Michigan. But thinking about that is, because this is a game that none of us really thought Virginia Tech had much of a shot in, when we thought they were going to be operating at a significantly higher level of efficiency than we've seen so far, clearly.
We just didn't expect them to be 3 touchdown dogs.
No,
Yeah,
no,
I mean,
would say
okay, honest question. What would you have guessed the spread on August 29th? If you could have guessed the spread for this game on August 29th before Virginia Tech played Vanderbilt, what would you have guessed? I would have said probably
10
So you say-
10 to 14, maybe like 12.
Yeah, I would have said like 8 to 10.
I was going to say 7.5 or something like that.
Yeah. And some of that is informed not only by what we thought of Virginia Tech, but also I think the questions surrounding Miami. Like, it looked good on paper again, but like, are they going to be the team that they're expected to be in actuality when the games kick off. Like, and a big reason for it is their offensive line is really, really good, and that's been an issue for them in past years. Their offensive line is awesome, and they have an elite quarterback. I mean, Cam Ward. I don't think there's 3 quarterbacks I'd take in the sport over Cam Ward right now. He's unbelievable. So that's the major difference with Miami, right? They've always had skill guys. They've always had good defensive backs. You know, that stuff hasn't really changed. What's changed is the offensive line play and the quarterback play. So, I mean, I think going into the year, I would have thought Miami was more talented, but I thought higher at Virginia Tech as well. And Miami is better than I thought they would be. Like, I thought they'd be pretty good, but they're looking like top 4 or 5 team in the country good.
Legitimate
And I wasn't
national
expecting
championship
that.
contender?
Probably like a half step behind that, but I think they're a step behind. I would say like Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, but they're probably in that next group with how they've looked so far.
Cam Ward's played like 2+ seasons at the FBS level. We all know what he did at Incarnate Word as an FCS guy. 8,400 yards through the air, 62 touchdowns in 2+ seasons. That's ludicrous.
Well, if you remember, Rick,
Yeah.
that was at least my number one guy out of the portal when we got our boy, Virginia Tech
Before he
legend
went
Grant
to-
Wells.
Damn it.
Swing and a miss.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of folks expected him to be good coming out of there, but I don't know that folks really expected him to be kind of the elite passer that he's been up to this point.
No.
I think he's kind of exceeded even the ceiling of some of his, biggest fans coming out of FCS. But he's in a team now that's always had talent on the outside, always had talent at running back, and it's really showing so far. And I can't believe Xavier Restrepo is still playing football. I feel like he's been around for a decade. There's like one of these guys every year that Tech plays that seems like they've been around since I was in grade school. But
For what it's
Restrepo's-
worth, he's a 5th-year senior.
It doesn't feel like it. Restrepo's been phenomenal. They've got other guys around him too, and Cam has really turned this offense into a well-oiled machine. I mean, they hung 40 or 50 on Florida on the road, 41 on the road at Florida. They kind of messed around with South Florida last week and still hung 50 on them. And I think that South Florida team is, I think, pretty respectable.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at an offense that's had no issues scoring up to this point. Their 2 middle games might as well not have happened. They played Florida A&M and Ball State. But that first win of the season, I think a lot of folks expected that game to be a lot closer than it was.
Yep.
And then the South Florida game, folks expected them to win, but to drop 50 on South Florida was pretty impressive. Now, in a lot of ways, I think Florida was their first test in the sense of I think Florida's got talent. They're not all that great by SEC standards, considering that the league has got talent, just oozing. But Virginia Tech's strengths seem to be, especially on the defensive side, is a secondary. And you have to wonder if maybe, just maybe, Dorian, Mansour Delane, Jalen Jones, Mose Phillips, potentially even a nickel package, which we haven't seen a ton of this year. Tech has really played their base defense a lot. You have to wonder if those back 4, back 5 guys are going to be able to keep a lid on things, at least for the most part.
I'm really concerned about Tech's ability to stop the run here. To be honest, for as good as Cam Ward has been, as good as the receivers have been, I'm really, really concerned about Virginia Tech.
And they can't load the
stopping
box
run
in
here.
this one, Mike. They can't. They're not going to be able to play 7, 8 guys in the box all day. Miami's going to spread them out. They're going to force them to have to cover the perimeter, cover downfield, and it's going to put themselves in a situation where Damian Martinez, Lyle, who had a great game last week, they've got some guys who can run the football pretty effectively. And it's not just Damian Martinez, even though he's kind of the head of the snake.
Yeah.
But they're not going to be able to play the Marshall defense that they played or the ODU defense that they played, where they put 7-8 guys in the box half the time. I think Miami is really going to spread them out and force them to be sound when they're covering their gaps.
First of all, Mike, I don't know if you're seeing Scott's like harassing text to you, but he
know.
wants you to turn
Jesus
your volume
Christ.
up.
I cannot turn the volume up any louder.
That's why we pay Scott the big bucks to produce the show.
Speak louder, Michael.
I
Say it
cannot
with
turn
your
it up
chest.
any louder. Yeah, I cannot turn it up any louder.
I mean,
I don't know what to do about that.
You talk about fear, right? And fear for me in this game comes from the fact that I've seen this movie before a number of times, and it's called The First Quarter.
Yeah.
Think back to even last season. Florida State, Louisville, NC State. The game was over before it started. In the case of NC State, they came back. You can say the same thing, obviously, about what we've seen so far in 2024. 17-0 Vanderbilt, 14-0 Rutgers. I'd almost venture to say, it's kind of a ridiculous, maybe this is just pure gut. Tech certainly can't go down double digits and win this game. I would say that unless they go up double digits, they're not going to win this game. Even if they win by a field goal, I think you have to be up by 10, 14 points at some point. Like, the roadmap is 2018, or I guess 2019 it would have been, the Fuente resurgence year, where things were as bad, if not worse, from a fan base mental health perspective.
Yeah.
Going into that game as this game. That was, you just got dogged by Duke 45 to whatever, 10 or 7 at home after Tim Thomas had a heart attack in the press box because you couldn't take a halftime lead against Furman. Like, it was Furman, Rhode Island. We had 2 FCS games in 1 year. Couldn't put either of them away.
Yeah,
and
not
getting
great.
dogged by Duke. And what they do? It was a Miami team who I believe was ranked very high in the game, or at least ranked.
Yeah.
They were certainly favored. Couple of interceptions, coming out party for Caleb Farley. The score's 28-0. And then you're just holding your breath for that clock to run out, and boy, did it come down to the last minute.
Yeah.
That is the only hope. And I would venture to say that this is a much more talented Miami team than that one. Not to say that one wasn't talented,
Right.
but that was step one of many that made that talented group fall apart at the seams. So they did end up finishing like 6-6 or whatever it was. But this team has their eye on the prize. They're not going to go down as easy. We have 5 years of statistics, or 4 1/4 years of statistics that would indicate that Cam Ward's not the kind of guy that's going to throw 2 interceptions and a half.
Yeah.
Given he throws like 6-7 all year. So I don't know. It's an incredibly tough hill to climb for all those reasons I just said. And, you know, I'll challenge you guys on this one. Is there any like positional matchup where you feel like Virginia Tech has a distinct advantage in this game? Like, we going into Rutgers, we're like, well, pass defense should be better than Rutgers' passing game. Didn't end up being true. And Rutgers should be able to run the ball and win in the trenches. Didn't necessarily end up being true. But where do you feel like Tech has an advantage, if anywhere? You can't say the kicker.
Well, we know it's not special teams in general, right?
Yeah.
I don't care what the metrics say. Virginia Tech's had enough special teams miscues to outweigh whatever metrics say that they're any good. The only guy that I can look at is Bashal Tootin, and if you can get him the ball in space in one-on-one situations, I mean, I don't really trust Virginia Tech's offensive line to get Bashal a ton of running room in this game. So, as athletic as he is and as skilled as he is, you're kind of banking on him being able to be the guy that can kind of make some stuff happen on his own.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we're going to get there, but it's kind of Tech's only hope. And I might go ahead and throw up this comment from Gregory regarding drones. I don't want Kyron to get out of his element in this game. I know that he's got this relationship with Cam Ward. They're cousins, is that right?
They are. They're cousins, but I don't know like if it's like a first cousin or what. But they are cousins, yes.
Regardless, Kyron does not need to be Cam Ward in this game.
No.
That's not how Virginia Tech wins football games. So Kyron's got to take care of the football. Kyron's going to have to be physical as a runner. He's going to have to maybe land 1 or 2 shots downfield. I don't need him to be the air raid guy who throws for 450, right? So ultimately, I think it comes down to whether or not Tech can establish the run in this game on offense, which I have my doubts, and whether or not they're going to be able to keep Miami under 35. If Tech can keep Miami under 35, maybe 30, this game may be interesting in the fourth quarter. But given Miami's track record and what they've done so far, Virginia Tech's defense has been suspect at times. I think 35 might be asking a little much.
I think this is the game where it's going to be really important for Kyron Drones to be the extra hat in the running game and to be that consistently. I think that is your path to being competitive here. Miami's got a top 10 rushing defense. In fact, a top 5 rushing defense. They have a top 15 pass defense. Some of that is opponent, but they're really good. I mean, they're really good. And, we've listed the teams they've played. South Florida is probably the best offense they've played, like better than Florida. Florida's got a lot of talent, but as far as just like how they perform, South Florida is probably the best offense they played. They held them to 15 points. So, I mean, this defense is no joke. They have a very good defense. I think that this is a really important game for Drones. Obviously, he's got to be more efficient in the passing game. But I think the element where Virginia Tech's competitive here and how Virginia Tech's competitive here is keeping the offense on the field, and very similar to the game plan in 2020 against Clemson with Trevor Lawrence and Blacksburg. I think you have to sit on the ball a little bit here. Not because I don't think Virginia Tech's defense can get stops. I think they are capable of getting stops for sure. I just don't know if you can get stops against this Miami offense and hold it down for 4 quarters, right? There's too much variance in terms of like Virginia Tech's ability to like stop the big plays. Obviously, there's too much variance there. Mm-hmm. And down by down, I think the defense has actually played pretty decently this year. The issues have been like they were last year, the big plays. They're happening less often, but they're still happening, and they're coming in back-breaking moments, which we've highlighted at length on this podcast, right? So I think the path to being competitive here is you're able to run the ball, keep the offense on the field, extend drives. And one thing we haven't talked about in a couple of weeks, but I think is especially important, you can't be kicking red zone field goals here. Right? And this is a game where you're going to have to really make the decision of, do you want to be aggressive and go all out with the opportunity to win? Or do you want to just like sit on the ball, try to play a perfect game, and hope that Miami makes a mistake? And like that's your path. It's like choose the path that you want to take to win. And I don't know what the most viable path is to Virginia Tech, but I know if they're going to be like super, super aggressive offensively, going for it a lot, trying to score touchdowns instead of kicking field goals, there is a path here where Virginia Tech just gets blown out because they're playing too aggressively, right? We've seen that before. But then there's the other element where this could be like a lower scoring game. Virginia Tech keeps Miami's offense off the field, drains the clock, takes the play clock under 10. That's the path of not getting blown out, which is why like I've seen people all week on social media, and I know people are like really low on how this team has played so far this year, and I think rightfully so. Through 4 games, it's been really disappointing. But I'm not so quick to say like, yeah, this is an automatic like Miami's going to easily cover 20. Like it's hard to cover 20 in college football.
A lot of
it's
points.
tough. It's a lot of points, right? So like I don't come into this thinking like this is an auto cover for Miami, because I do think there's a path here where just from a game script standpoint, Virginia Tech can cover 3 touchdowns, especially considering the fact that Virginia Tech hasn't played their best game yet. And maybe this is the time where you play your best game. If Virginia Tech plays their best game, even if Miami plays their best game, I don't think Virginia Tech is 3 touchdowns worse than Miami, right? So like there are paths to covering. There are paths to covering the spread here, I think. I don't think it's very likely Virginia Tech makes this really competitive, or obviously wins the game. I don't think. I'm just, we're sitting here recording an hour-long podcast. I'm trying to like reason through ways a 2-2 team that's been incredibly disappointing is going to cover a 3-touchdown spread against a top 10 team in the country. I just on the road on a short week, and it's really hard to get there, but there are ways it could happen.
I mean, miracles can exist, but one thing that I don't think we've talked about at length enough is that like 2 of Miami's like probably like 5 or 6, like certainly NFL caliber players at a minimum are on the defensive line. So there's the path to it being Louisville last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is, certainly. I think more likely than keeping it competitive. Yeah.
And I hate to say it because, but in college football, narratives are reality. And if this team goes down, if you have a 3-and-out with a couple of sacks and Tootin gets quashed up at the line and you punt it and Cam Ward has a quick touchdown and then you give the ball back and suddenly, what's the juice going to be like on that sideline? I mean, that's a coach's job to be able to maintain, a level of effort and enthusiasm. And I'm not accusing the players by any measure of having quit at any point yet this season or last season. I think that's the number one thing you can speak to the prior regime for, is that the team has yet to quit, because we were in this position last year and they stormed off and went, 5-3 in the ACC or whatever the hell it was. But expectations change things. Paychecks change things. And there's a lot of people on this team that you would not be surprised if they are feeling some type of way about the way things have gone so far and how their star has fallen. And that's just something I personally worry about. What I want to know is if you gave Brett Pry and, the main players on this staff, whoever you want to include in that list, a truth serum about how they feel this game is going to go. Because you can form a narrative that Rutgers is a good football team and Vanderbilt's better and those were close games. And that's all true. But you flip those scripts a little bit and Tech's 4-0, and I'm still not feeling too hot. I'm probably feeling roughly the same about this, the way Miami's played. So I want to give Brent Pry the truth serum and say, how do you feel? Because if the answer is we're toast, if he truly feels like this is a competitive football team, he's going to orchestrate a game plan in that direction. If he doesn't, and this is a inevitable loss, show some progress, keep the team together as best you can, avoid a body bag game, then I think that'll show early on if things aren't going Tech's way right off the bat. So these are all things I'm looking for. More so than anything, the first quarter is going to tell a lot of the story.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing I want to add to, and I just to build on your point that you just made, Andrew, I think if you truth serum Brent Pry, I think his answer would be very different 4 weeks ago than it is right now. I mean, he's been pretty adamant that he thinks this is a talented football team, and I believe him. I think we all thought it was talented enough coming into the year, with some flaws, right? Offensive line, and we were concerned about safety, and that's been fine. Safety's been pretty good. It's been offensive line play mostly, and the fact that the offense just been up and down, and Drones hasn't played his best football, and there's been a lot of stuff there. But I'm laughing at Scott's comment.
Go ahead and throw that up.
Yeah.
Andrew is over there taking notes, man.
Yeah.
He came prepared except for unmuting himself.
I'm Corso,
student of the game, man.
Yeah. I think that Pry believes he has a team that is talented enough to be competitive here, but I don't know how you go into this thinking that. I mean, they go in trying to win every game. It's just pick your game plan. That's the situation for Pry. Pick your best game plan, and I don't know.
So far, not so good in that department.
So far, not so good in that department. Like we're trusting, and we'll get into our picks here in a bit. But that's like a big reason why. Like this is one of probably one of the few games on the schedule, honestly, where Virginia Tech has a coaching advantage. Like,
I'm not going that far.
Cristobal's pretty. I mean, Cristobal's game management speaks for itself. I mean,
yes, I know.
I mean, he's had a lot of talented teams that have covered up his total incompetence as a game manager. But anyway, that's all I got. Do you guys have anything else before we get into our ACC picks here? There's only a few games to pick this week, so.
Last thing I think we should discuss. There's a hurricane on the way, and I'm not talking about the football team. Now, this hurricane is supposed to be on the Gulf side. Thanks, Grayson. Appreciate it. Trying something new tonight.
Yeah.
Go ahead and throw that up. We don't really know what the weather is going to look like on Friday. They're calling for thunderstorms and rain during the day. At night, not so sure. A lot of that's going to depend on when the storm comes through. If it gets sloppy in Miami, I do think that benefits Virginia Tech. Weather is often a great equalizer. And if Virginia Tech probably had their way, I think they would rather play in pretty rainy conditions.
I mean, you negate the team speed of Miami, which
God, I can't throw up any comments. Mike has to do that.
I think it's just me. I think I'm the only one who can do it. Maybe not. Scott would know better than me. Scott's the
we literally
producer.
We literally just put your comment about my pen up there. Come on, man. Don't get greedy.
I think he's just meaning in general. ACC picks. Oh, man. Boston College hosting Western Kentucky. Let me pull up the actual schedule and not just the picks sheet. Shout out Scott on the pick sheet, by the way. Boston College is playing Western Kentucky on Saturday. BC is a 13-point favorite in Chestnut Hill. How are we feeling? Coming off a huge win, by the way, against Michigan State.
Again, bookmark it for. Oh, we lose Ricky there? Ruh-roh.
Well, man.
Bookmark it for a few weeks from now because I'm going to ask you guys the question. Would you rather have Bill O'Brien or Brent Pry? Would you rather have Thomas Castellanos or Kyron Drones? We have a couple of weeks to get more data points for you to answer that question. But right now, today, I like Bill O'Brien and Castellanos to take care of Western Kentucky and the Hilltoppers, and this one they'll cover 13.
Well, I love any time we get to discuss Thomas Castellanos when Mike is around because we know how he feels. 13 points is a lot. Give me the Hilltoppers to be able to keep this within 2 touchdowns.
Good pick. Coming off a huge win, red bandana game. Now you got to play Western Kentucky before you're going on the road to play UVA next Saturday. I'm not saying it's a trap game, but I'm saying it's a game sandwich between a game sandwich between 2 pretty important games on the schedule. I like Western Kentucky here. BC outright, but I like Western Kentucky on the spread. Louisville, number 15 Louisville, number 16 Notre Dame. I don't want to get into all my gripes about this game being on the Peacock, by the way. Notre Dame is a 6.5 point favorite. I like Louisville here. I like Louisville a lot. They've proven that they're able to stop the run. They are sorry, working on something here. They've shown an ability this year against not great competition to stop the run, but they have a lot of talent on that side of the ball. Notre Dame is really, really struggling to throw the football right now. Riley Leonard doesn't look right. It is at home. It is in South Bend. I think Louisville has a pretty good chance to win this game outright, but I think they definitely cover 6.5 here. Give me the Cardinals plus 6.5 in South Bend.
Who's the better coach in this game? Not sure.
Oh man!
As much
don't
much
love
crap
that
as
if you're Marcus Freeman, man. Don't love that.
as much as I talked crap about Tyler Shuck this offseason, give me the Cards with the points here.
When y'all say, guys, give me Notre Dame.
Would love to see it. Northern Illinois, traveling to NC State. NC State is only a 6.5 point favorite against the Huskies, coming off of a heartbreaking collapse at the hands of the Buffalo Bulls last Saturday. Lost by a field goal. 2 weeks removed from their upset in South Bend.
Shout out my fiance, Buffalo alum.
Oh, Buffalo alum. Shout out Lisa.
Yeah.
All right. Go Bulls.
Yeah. I don't know, man. NC State is extremely hard to understand.
I agree. I agree.
I don't know what's going on there. Scott brings up a very good point. This is on the Cheeks W.
Cheeks W, baby.
And
a nooner. Not only on the Cheeks W, it's a nooner.
Yeah. Isn't there something about underdogs on the CW?
Yeah, we got a commenter on my ACC podcast who gives us the updated stats on every preview. He'll probably be on the show right after I get done recording this one, discussing what that looks like. But yeah, man, underdogs on the CW cover a lot, like way more than 55% of the time. Hell yeah. NIU is the pick for Ricky.
Yeah, I'm not one to worry about things like television networks and stuff like that. I'm more direct and focused. I take the better quarterback and the better coach, and I'll take Thomas Hammock with Northern Illinois.
There it is.
Ethan Hampton at quarterback. He's done a great job so far. 6 touchdowns to 1 interception for the Huskies. Dave Dorn, it's like who knows what you're going to get, and I have no idea who's even playing quarterback for NC State anymore. Give me Northern Illinois to cover, perhaps even win.
Casey Concepcion deserves better.
Should have transferred to Northern Illinois.
I think he's getting better. I think he's getting better. I think CJ Bailey might be better than Grayson McCall. We'll see. I like NIU. I like NIU as well. I think if you're betting this game, I think it's worth sprinkling a little something on Northern Illinois to make magic happen again. NC State's been really, really underwhelming this year, so I would just take a look at that. I also think it's going to be a popular pick, so I wouldn't exactly hammer Northern Illinois on the spread either, but I think it's something to take a look at. I think if you're, I'm from a betting standpoint,
line, Mike?
I would say if you're going to actually bet this game, I think you'd rather just bet Northern Illinois money line than mess with the spread. I think this is either NC State wins by like a couple touchdowns or Northern Illinois like beats them on the field. That's what it kind of feels like to me, but we'll see. Holy Cross, Syracuse, guys. Any reason to not pick Syracuse here? I don't have.
No, but I am intrigued to see if Syracuse dominates in this one. Yeah. If they don't, our early impressions of them may have been slightly off.
Look, at 1-3, this isn't Bob Chesney and Matthew Saluka's Holy Cross team. Give me the
There orange. It is, full circle.
Maybe we can just go back to Holy Cross and secure the bag there.
Secure his soul, man. Maybe.
I was going to say, this is yeah, we're gonna leave that. We're gonna leave that alone. I think we're gonna leave that there. Louisiana,
I know where you were going.
Louisiana traveling to Wake Forest. Wake Forest 3.5 point favorite. Wake coming off a bye week, and now they're a short favorite at home against Louisiana, who I don't know. Like if they wanted to go ahead and fire a coach, Billy Napier's probably going to be available soon. So. I don't know. Look. I don't think Louisiana. While I don't think Wake Forest is that good, I don't think Louisiana is like spectacular either. I mean, they played 2 walkovers and then they were semi-competitive against Tulane. I think Tulane's pretty decent, but
Well,
yeah,
I mean, if you think Tulane's decent, like that bowl game is what formed half the offseason expectations. And this Tulane team is essentially the same one. They don't have the quarterback from the regular season last year. They do have the running back. The receivers are all the same, my friends.
yeah,
This is Tulane.
yeah. I'm going with Wake. By the way, I think they cover 3.5 here. I think they win the game.
I got to drink my own Kool-Aid and say that playing Tulane close means something. So give me Louisiana.
I also have Wake, but Scott taking offerings for NIL deals that's nasty work.
The holy bag, baby. The holy bag, as Scott alluded to.
We should start that right now. We should start a Holy Cross podcast and try to turn it into an NIL collective.
Subscribe to buy Matthew Slukovac.
Not sure I've seen anybody ever try to do that before, that specific thing that you just mentioned. North Carolina. I would never turn a podcast into an NIL collective. North Carolina traveling on the road to Duke. Duke is a 2.5-point favorite. North Carolina. North Carolina fresh off of a 70-point. Well, it wasn't all their defense, but they gave up 70. They gave up 70 when you count punt returns and everything else in that game.
They won't give up 70 in this game. I promise you that.
They will not. For as bad as their defense is, they will not give up 70 to this Duke offense.
With that said, give me the Blue Devils.
Yeah, Mac Brown said after the game, like, if you want me to leave, leave. And the players leaked it to the media.
That was weird, huh?
Kind of like worst possible case scenario. Words from my father. He's worried that somehow this will. He's like, that makes me worried a little bit. I'm like, oh, what? Are you worried that Mac Brown's going to be gone and North Carolina's going to hire a competent coach? No. He's worried that somehow this is going to bring the team together. I doubt it. Give me Duke.
Yeah, I was trying to talk my way into like a dead cat bounce here for Carolina, coming off of what should get like everybody put into a nursing home. But I come back and I think about what you just said, Andrew, the fact that Mac Brown after the game like gave an impassioned speech in the locker room where he was like, yeah, I think I'm done. Buddy, that sounds like they got a little bit of the Q word going. A little bit quit. And I think a competent Duke defense against a quarterback, and I think it's going to be Jacoby Criswell here, who's shown a little bit of dual threat, but mostly like decent runner, mediocre passer. I think that this is a Duke defense that's going to make some plays here, force a couple turnovers, and
Going to be the best 5-0 team in the country, Mike.
get this home. And don't want to talk about it. Duke, I got Duke. Duke's gonna make a bowl game, and I'm still gonna be wondering if they're good. This is gonna be like BC last year. Stanford, 7 p.m. ESPN, traveling on the road to number 17 Clemson. Clemson is now a 22.5-point favorite. Stanford's pretty well coached. I think we can agree. They're pretty well coached here, and they went on the road to Syracuse, and that was fantastic. That was really good. Have you guys seen what Clemson's been doing lately? I don't know if beating Syracuse and then going up against Clemson's front on both sides of the ball. That's a little bit different test. And Stanford had some turnovers in that game against Syracuse, and man, I just don't know if I'm Stanford, if I can sit here in good conscience and really trust my quarterback, Ashton Daniels, for 4 quarters to make enough plays here. Clemson, I think, covers.
Give me the hippies.
For my mental health sake, I got to hope that Clemson blows the brakes off of them. So we're going with that.
Okay. This is a fun one. This is a really fun one.
If you're a sicko.
I mean, I watched the entire Florida State game last weekend against Cal. I had on my laptop as I was working on some stuff.
Can't believe Cal let us down. So disappointing.
This is the highlight game of the ACC. For ACC Network, not just in the ACC. That I'm not that crazy, but this is the ACC Network game of the week. 8:00 time slot down there in Dallas. Florida State traveling to SMU, 6.5 point favorite. Are the Ponies? I mean, give me SMU. SMU beat the piss out of TCU last weekend. Florida State, they scored a touchdown in the first quarter and then didn't score another one the rest of the game. I don't know. Give me Florida. I don't know. Give me Florida. Give me Florida State. And to correct the record, they scored two. Or I'm sorry. Give me SMU. Florida State scored 2 touchdowns. They went for 2 and didn't get it. But yeah. Anyway, give me SMU. They win and cover and cruise. Maybe a little higher scoring. Because I think Florida State can score a little bit on SMU's defense, but not a lot. Just more than 2 touchdowns.
I'll take SMU. Why not? More holy bags for the Ponies.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at Florida State's schedule, and I'm struggling to find wins. Duke, Carolina, Charleston Southern, and maybe Florida. But Notre Dame, Miami, Clemson, those don't look easy. The magic number for Florida State is 21, insofar as they have not gotten past that this year in 4 attempts in terms of scoring offense. I do have faith that SMU can score 21, and as such, I will take them.
Fair. We're going back in time to Friday night. Virginia Tech, a 20-point underdog. I'll make this quick. I haven't seen anything to indicate that Virginia Tech can stay competitive here. I haven't seen it, and they now need to play their best game. There's paths to covering, like I mentioned. You sit on the ball. You keep Cam Ward off the field. All that sounds good in theory, but then you got to go out and do it, and you got to do it on a short week, and I just don't know that they can, right? And Miami's got an advantage in every unit on the field. There's very little where I can look at Virginia Tech and say, yeah, this is somewhere where if they do this one thing, they can really win the game or they can keep it competitive. When I'm talking about things like sitting on the clock and running the play clock down to under 10 seconds, it means that you're not really feeling good about your chances. So I cannot, in good conscience, pick Virginia Tech to cover. But with that said, it would be Virginia Tech as hell. Scott pointed this out to me over text, so hat tip to him. It would be Virginia Tech as hell to go out and beat Miami, then go out to Palo Alto and lose to Stanford next week. That would be theater on this. That would be theater on this podcast. That would be best possible outcome.
Numbers.
Very funny. Numbers. Chef's kiss. So I could see that happening. But yeah, anyway, give me Miami. Miami covers. I think this is this feels like 42-17 or something.
There comes a time in every team season where you punch above your weight class. You do things right. Things go your way. And you shock yourselves and you shock the other team you're playing. You shock the world.
And that comes at the end of the year when Virginia Tech plays UVA.
And I was, God damn it, Mike. Shut the hell up. Let me get my punchline out. This isn't that week. Give me the Canes. I wrote a whole column on this. This is inevitable. We all know this is coming. Make sure you've got a couple drinks next to you for this one. I certainly will. Miami's going to cover this. It's not going to be a fun watch.
Yeah, Ricky, I don't even think alcohol can solve our problems on Friday night.
I'm so mad at Mike. So mad. Ruined my punchline.
Yeah. It comes down to the question I asked you guys before, right? Where does Virginia Tech stack up? Where is there an advantage? And right now, today, you can't find it on that field. You simply can't. Not from what we've seen so far. You've seen spurts of it. You've seen bits and pieces. But it hasn't come all together for 4 quarters. It hasn't really come together for 3 quarters. And you're going to need an entire game and some luck to win. And you need more than what we've seen so far to cover. When it moved from 17.5 to 20, I started thinking, but I'm not going to let my heart get in the way of my head. Miami wins, I would say, roughly 41-17.
Yeah. What would the spread, real quick, before we get out of here, what would the spread have to be for you guys to pick Virginia Tech? I think it would have to be like 24 to, I think it'd have to be like around 24.
23 and a half.
Yeah, another field goal, probably.
Even though I guess I did just.
I know we just said. I was going to say we just said like 25. We just said that Virginia Tech would lose by like 25, and now I'm saying that I would pick Virginia Tech. Anyway,
you get spooked by the actual number. 41-17 is something I just made up.
Mine would probably have to be 28 or more. I do not think this is going to go well. I really hope I'm wrong, and I've been wrong in situations like this.
This would be a great time for us to be wrong. We were really wrong about Vanderbilt going the other way. It would be great to be wrong, like equally as wrong about this. And
I would absolutely love to come on this podcast next weekend after John Love nails a 42-yard field goal to win the game. Would love it.
All right, last question I got for you guys. What would you need to see to feel more confident about the outlook than you do today, and what would you need to see to feel less confident about the team's outlook than you do today? Injuries can't be a factor here.
Mine would be the offense playing well, because like I think the defense could come out and have a good game, and it wouldn't shock me. It would legitimately shock me if Virginia Tech's offense came out and played really well here with what we've seen so far. So,
yeah, if Tech scores 35 or more, I would feel somewhat okay about the short-term future. And if you want me to feel worse than I already do, let's start talking about 30-point losses. That'll be really hard to swallow.
Yeah, I think even 28 points would make me feel pretty good. But if you score 28 and still don't cover, though, then we start getting into all kinds of issues.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, hey, if you're listening to the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, subscribe there. Then go and on YouTube.com, subscribe to the YouTube page. You can be part of this live. If you're listening on audio and you're so confused about every time Ricky says throw the comment up and we don't read the comment out loud, well, yeah, it's because you're missing out. Subscribe. Yeah. This is a plea. We are probably 4 or 5 years late to the live stream game, and we are trying to catch up in a hurry here. And the results so far have been, the response has been tremendous. And to those listening and to those who reach out privately, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this. And we just want to grow that to whatever degree we can, right? We're all in this together. So
Misery loves company, boys.
If you send me a screenshot of you subscribing to our YouTube and our podcast, I will Venmo you $5. And that agreement is about as solid as UNLV's assistant coach is with Matthew Sluka. Good night, everyone.